record who's
Okay,
here.
sounds good. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Q3 2015 CCHI Rater Refresh Training. This is going to be one of 4 Rater Refresh training sessions being provided for our July-August 2015 testing and rating. As you know, I'm Beth Tobin of McCann Associates, and we are the technical partner of CCHI on the administration and scoring processes associated with the core CHI and CHI examination. So tonight will take about 30 minutes. Our training will start with a brief overview of the CCHI assessment. This will then be followed by the Rater Refresh, which will take about approximately 20 minutes. And then at the conclusion, we'll have some time for questions and answers for McCann or CCHI. All interpretation and site translation problems are scored. We use anchored rating scales with specific quality of response associated with each score point that the rater assigns. Criterion ratings are randomly inserted during the rating process, and this is done to provide a standard measure of quality control of the rating process. All problems are scored by 2 raters. If the raters differ by more than a point, the problem goes to a 3rd rater or a chief. This chief makes the final score determination for the problem. Now we're going to discuss the validity of the items in the test. A job analysis is conducted, led by CCHI, which identifies the critical knowledge, skills, and activities required for successful medical interpreters. This resulted in the development of a test blueprint, which details skills that are critical for successful performance, how those skills should be measured, and with how many test items. Each test item is explicitly linked to a KSA, a knowledge, skill, or activity, which is described in the job analysis report, which is test content developers completed the initial linkage, and CCHI let SMEs verify the content developers linkage. Item performance is continuously monitored by CCHI with assistance from McCann. Now, it is critical to successful and accurate rating and scoring that item raters keep in mind at all times during the rating process what the target audience is for the CCHI assessment. To that end, keep in mind that the purpose of the examination is to distinguish minimum proficiency as a healthcare interpreter from lower levels, given the target audience, and not to identify masterful interpreters. And our target audience is the following: a person who is able to perform the functions of an entry-level healthcare interpreter competently and independently in a healthcare setting with the knowledge, skill, and ability required to relay messages accurately from a source language to a target language in a culturally competent manner and in accordance with established ethical standards. Now keep in mind, too, that entry level means the level required to be able to begin to perform unsupervised healthcare interpreting competently. The CCHI assessment uses anchored rating scales. A hallmark of anchored scales is that each score point has associated with it a specific definition. The task for raters is to then evaluate the item that they are rating in the context of the anchored rating scale and assign a rating based upon their common interpretation of the definition provided on the scale itself for each level of performance. Anchored rating scales have clear advantages. They are easy and intuitive to use. They provide very specific feedback to candidates, and they minimize rater subjectivity. The sort of scoring being conducted for the CCHI examination is referred to as performance scoring. This allows the testing of candidates on complex content which requires a detailed response. In the CCHI, the items require examinees to generate a response, which is then scored by user raters. There are known issues with performance scoring. Such content is difficult to score. The scoring process inherently has a greater risk of subjectivity and hence the need for periodic rater refresh training. It is far more costly, which is due primarily to the cost of scoring and raters, and requires human raters require both ongoing training as well as monitoring. Now, there are known risks to high-quality ratings, and CCHI takes great efforts to mitigate that risk. Good rating requires sound inter-rater reliability. That is, raters must agree with their rating for the same test taker's response to an item. To the extent that raters agree, we have good inter-rater reliability. The use of anchored rating scales and the rater refresh meetings each rating cycle are meant to maintain good rater agreement. In addition, McCann regularly tracks and reports on rater performance each cycle, making sure that raters perform consistently. Now, there are known threats to quality ratings, and raters should keep these potential issues in mind as they conduct their scoring. First, we have the halo effect. The halo effect is a situation in which positive or negative performance on one part of the test influences subsequent ratings. For example, a test taker does well on one problem and is subsequently rated and viewed positively on their other problem. Next, we have central tendency. This is the failure to differentiate across candidates, essentially assigning near equal ratings to all problems, regardless of actual test taker performance. Third, we have contrast, which is a situation where a test taker's performance is judged not against the anchored scale, but rather against the performance of other candidates that recently tested. And finally, we have drift. Drift is a situation that can arise over time when a rater essentially applies different standards or interpretations of the anchored scale over time. Now, some things to consider as you rate. 1, are you rating within the guidelines scoring definitions? And 2, do the candidate's errors represent the shift in meaning? Now let's take a look at the scoring rubrics you'll be using. First, we have register. Register is a variety of language used for a particular purpose or in a particular social setting. This could be prescribed grammar, formal, informal tone, form of address, and technical terminology. Second, we have lexical content. Lexical content refers to units of information. These can be individual words, groups of words or phrases that communicate a single concept. Here, errors include omissions, additions, and the inaccurate translation of a unit of information. Third, we have grammar. Grammar includes the set of rules that govern how sentences, phrases, and words are put together in a given language. Examples of errors in grammar include verb tense, number, gender, and word order or syntax. And finally, we have quality of speech. Quality of speech focuses on the physical characteristics of the speech produced. This includes false starts, repetition, poor pronunciation, volume control, and pace and intonation. Now some notes on scoring and applying scores to the item. During scoring, you should keep in mind the following. Each score point has a specific meaning, and all rating is to be done with that meaning in mind. A score of 0 indicates that there are changes or errors which render results inaccurate. A score of 1 indicates that there are changes or errors which shift the meaning. A score of 2 indicates that there are changes or errors which do not shift the meaning. A score of 3 indicates there are no changes or errors. Scoring is not a matter of counting errors, but rather of assessing the impact of errors if they occur on the meaning. During your rating, if a candidate self-corrects, score their last utterance, regardless of whether it is right or wrong. Such events should be considered as a false start when rating for quality of speech. If you think it's helpful to do so, start with lexical content first. And finally, keep in mind then omissions are considered lexical content errors. Now, if the test taker fails to maintain the register of the speaker provider or of the patient, it is an error and should be scored so accordingly. Any regionalism used in response is accepted as correct if this response is free from meaning and from grammar errors. There may be situations where data is missing. Raters need to distinguish between the sources of error as the rating task will shift accordingly. If data are missing due to technical reasons, do not penalize the candidate. If the responses for the rest of the problem are sufficient, score. This does not concern key issues related to scales, medical terms, terms of art. Mark utterances that are absent for technical reasons as inaudible when appropriate. If you cannot score, mark the problem as cannot be rated. On the other hand, if data are missing due to candidate reasons, candidates may be penalized. If 50% or more is missing and the response cannot be rated, mark the box cannot be rated and write a comment in the notes box. This documentation is important and should be noted. If data are missing due to candidate reasons, candidates may be penalized. For example, the candidate's piece is too slow or there are too many cell corrections, false starts. These may result in the candidate not completing the message and running out of time. If 50% or more is missing and the response cannot be rated, mark the box cannot be rated. Write a comment in the notes box to specify why. For example, too many self-corrections or ran out of time. Now, some overall reminders on the rating process. Each rater is expected to work individually. We've discussed the rating system and the need for raters to agree. In terms of where we see the greatest variability in ratings, we need to be clear. Overall, raters demonstrate strong, consistent agreement across all rating activities. If there is one area where there is slightly more variability, it would be in the domain of lexical content and grammar for Arabic. Register and quality of speech are similarly consistently rated, as well as grammar in Spanish and Mandarin. McCann and CCHI jointly review rater performance at the end of each testing window. We consider 3 pieces of information in this process. 1, how well raters agreed with each other or their peers. 2, how often did individual raters require a judge compared to the group overall. And 3, how variable were a rater's ratings. Now, if you've not heard from CCHI, it means that your rating has fallen within the range of standards set for rater performance. So congratulations. Your comments on candidates' responses are very important. If you assign a 0 or 1, you must provide a comment. Chiefs must provide comments for all responses. And be specific. Give examples of the following instances. Comment if a candidate has really poor skills at keeping the meaning and finding equivalents. Comment if a candidate has poor command of grammar. Or comment if a candidate mostly does not maintain register. For example, replaces polysyllable expressions with neutral ones, or vice versa. Objectivity in scoring is critical, because each of the languages CCHI certifies is spoken in multiple locations, often resulting in many variants in the same language. CCHI has recruited raters from a broad spectrum of countries. Objectivity is also ensured by having multiple raters rate each candidate, as many as 14. The use of multiple well-trained raters ensures that a candidate's rating is free from very many well-known rater effects, as well as other threats to objectivity. As a final measure, in cases where raters fail to agree, a judge is used to determine the candidate's rating. Collectively, these measures ensure that the ratings for the CCHI exams are free from bias and as representative as possible of the candidate's true level of performance. CCHI wants each candidate to be rated by multiple raters, and so please follow the following steps. Allocate your time evenly across the rating window. Don't do all your rating right at the beginning or at the end. Don't rate more than 2 to 3 responses for any one candidate. If the candidate seems familiar, it's likely that they are. Return that item to the pool and move on to the next one. Note that for Arabic raters, you should rate no more than 4 to 5 items per candidate. Follow McCann's instructions regarding the initial workload at the beginning of the testing cycle, which we will detail momentarily. Now, when can we start to rate? Rating will start on August 10th, 2015. For Spanish, it will be 150 vignettes, then wait until I email you. And for Arabic and Mandarin, we will begin with 20 vignettes, and then wait until I email you. In the McCann scoring tool, please note that the following will make it possible for you to identify the candidate. This is to help ensure that you don't rate more items for one individual than is permissible. The user ID, session ID, equates to the candidate. The response equates to the candidate's interpretation of a specific vignette. Please try not to rate more than 4 vignettes that have the same user ID number value. Now, for a description of the ADA policies in place for CHI testing this window, I'm going to turn this over to Natalia.
Thank you, Beth. I usually talk about this every testing window, and this time we actually do have one candidate, Spanish, who requested a human reader as an accommodation. It's a blind candidate, so you need to pay attention if you come across responses to the following. First, you may hear the commands to the human reader. So if you hear the candidate say in English, next, stop, or in Spanish for that matter, next, stop, repeat, or read to me my notes, and then you hear somebody else's voice reading the notes, that is okay and acceptable, because in this case the human reader bilingual, and the human reader is also acting as a note taker for the candidate. Also, when you get to the site translation portion, you may hear the English voice reading the text, and then the candidate interpreting that text into Spanish. Again, that is what the accommodation is. That section is done like prepared simultaneous, and the candidate may run out of time. So if you are scoring that site translation vignette, pay attention. If you have enough material to score, please go ahead and do it, because we know that the candidate will run out of time, so they will be incomplete. But you still need to put, of course, the comment saying that the vignette not finished, but I had enough time, enough material to score, and then produce the score. Thank you, Beth.
Okay. Okay, if during your rating time you have any questions, please keep in mind the following. CCHI owns all policies. All such questions are addressed directly to them, and I will be providing those contacts in a little bit. Now, McCann is to be contacted only for customer support, scoring problems, or questions specific to the scoring process itself. If you have technical issues during the rating process, there are different contacts depending on the time of day. During our normal customer support on the screen now, you can email McCann at measuresuccess@mccantesting.com. But please do not, and I repeat, do not email the entire group when doing so. After normal customer support hours, please email McCann or myself at the address provided on the slide. You will need to copy Natalia and Malika, so please do not email the entire group. So when can we start rating? As I said before, we're going to start rating on August 10th. The rating will not be parallel to the testing window, just like we did in Q2. But you must wait until August 10th to start rating. Our testing window began last Monday and runs until August 8th. The rating deadline will be August 26th, and and the keep rating deadline will be August 31st. So this concludes the presentation portion of our session. So we'll now open up the floor to any questions for CCHI or McCann.
Well, while people are thinking, let me just make sure that we recorded everyone who is on the call. So we have Chi Wei, Chia Ru, Lauren, Ray, Sharon, Simone, Vilia, and Guadalupe.
Yeah.
Did I miss anyone? Okay, good. I also wanted to let you know the importance of copying Malika during this testing and scoring window, because I'll be on vacation at the end of August away in my home country of Russia. So it will be Malika and Beth coordinating the end of the scoring. So I will also, I also promised my mom that I'm not going to pick at emails. So that's why, please, if you have any problems, I know Malika and Beth will take good care of you, and I'll be in the beginning. I'm leaving on the 19th, so, but after that, they'll be the one who can help you, okay?
Okay. Have a safe trip.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, if you have no questions, then have a wonderful evening, and you still have till August 10th to have fun, and after that, please score as soon as you can, so that, the sooner we get the scores, the better it is. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Natalia. Have a safe trip. Enjoy it.
Thank you. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Bye-bye. Good night. Thank you, Beth.